Order.
Mr Speaker.
Ko Rahuri Kātani.
Mr Speaker, thank you for this opportunity to speak in this first reading debate on the Crown Entities Reform Bill. The Māori Party has campaigned long and hard for a system of government which is cost-effective, transparent and accountable. And so we want to be clear from the outset. Our focus has always been that we want to see more community services and less government bureaucracy for the outcome of whānau restoration. Our emphasis has always been on reinvigorating ourselves, restoring to ourselves the possibility of achieving the aspirations we set for ourselves. This bill moves some way towards putting in place the machinery of government changes to increase the efficiency of the public service while delivering better services. In doing so, it will help enable us to focus on what is really important, outcomes rather than inputs, the results rather than the activities. In this way, it is actually consistent with many of the initiatives we had advanced during this term of government, particularly, of course, whānau ora. In our 2008 policy, we looked at the opportunity for the Office of the Controller and Auditor General being required to report annually on the effectiveness of interventions targeted at Māori, Pacific, refugee and migrant communities as well as young people. This is a way of holding kāwanatanga to account, ensuring that the government really does serve the public and all members of the public to the best of their ability. By implication, the party supports the effective administration of government, particularly state sector Crown entities. The party supports a cost-effective public sector, but not at the expense of people's mental and physical health and state sector workers' rights and jobs. The first tranche of changes introduced in this bill are enclosed in Part 1, addressing the New Zealand Public Health and Disability Act. The Act authorises the disestablishment of related bodies to establish a single health promotion agency. The entities that will be merged into one body include the Alcohol Advisory Council of New Zealand, more commonly known as ALAC, and the Health Sponsorship Council and related aspects of the Ministry of Health. The key for us is that the dedicated commitment of the individuals and the work programs encompassed within both ALAC and the HSC must be supported to continue even though the infrastructure around these agencies is dissipated. And so we will be keeping a watching brief on the way in which advice, recommendations and research related to problems associated with the misuse of alcohol will be included in this new agency, as well as the priorities of the Health Sponsorship Council. The Māori Party believes that we must really focus on the long-term outlook, the intergenerational shift that will ensure we reduce alcohol-related harm right across the whānau. The New Zealand Medical Journal in June this year reported that a large proportion of New Zealanders report the experience of physical, social, economic and psychological harm because of the drinking of others. This broader context of whānau ora must be considered in the discussion of alcohol policy and how it will be implemented in the new Health Promotion Agency. We need to invest in well-being, to study the motivators and triggers that are associated with alcohol use within the whānau. It is about denormalising drinking, distancing our communities from the grasp of the alcohol industry. When I spoke on the Alcohol Reform Bill a couple of weeks ago, I referred to an interesting comparison made by Te Runanga o Ngaitahu to the regime of environmental management. It was their contention that the rights protected under Article 2 of Te Tiriti o Waitangi included the capacity to protect and preserve the well-being of our greatest taonga, our people. Accordingly, their view is that iwi have a right to be decision makers on the supply and regulation of alcohol within their respective ancestral lands. We will be considering these issues further as this bill progresses to the Select Committee stage to enable a tighter focus on how health promotion activities and targets will be determined in association with mana whenua. The second part of the bill relates to the expiry of the Mental Health Commission Act 1998. It provides for the appointment of a Mental Health Commissioner under the Health and Disability Commissioner Act and for the appointment of the chairperson of the Mental Health Commission as the first Mental Health Commissioner. It also seeks to transfer the advocacy and monitoring functions of the Mental Health Commission to the Health and Disability Commissioner. We want to know how the mental health sector relates to these proposals, and in all honesty, a key way of being able to achieve this will be in ensuring this bill enters into a robust consultation from which we are confident that advocates and consumers of the mental health community will contribute. The third part of this bill moves to disestablish the Charities Commission and transfer its functions to the Department of Internal Affairs. It also proposes to transfer the process of registration and deregistration of charities to be carried out by an independent decision-making board of 3 persons. While we understand the inevitable, we have to admit to being greatly disappointed that the autonomy and independence of the Charities Commission is being compromised by the integration into the administration of a central government agency. And we do have to wonder how the community and voluntary sector will respond to this latest change, particularly hot on the heels of the Office for the Community and Voluntary Sector moving into the Department of Internal Affairs. The Māori Party has always considered it one of our most critical priorities to empower communities, whānau and hapu to develop responses to issues impacting on them by trusting them and resourcing them. Communities and their relationships with central and local government are critical to our assessment as to the effectiveness or otherwise of the proposals contained in this bill. And I'm mindful of the agreement for a first principles review of the Charities Act 2005, which is to be completed by 2015. The review will consider whether the legislation is fit for purpose and reflects the needs and composition of our charities sector. An inevitable issue that arises for us is, are we placing the cart before the horse, dismantling the Charities Commission before we actually know whether the current mechanism is actually fit for purpose or not? Mr Speaker, the Māori Party will support the bill in its first reading in order to allow time for all Māori groups and individuals who have a stake in this issue to tell the Select Committee what they think of this bill and how they think it may affect any of these services to Māori in the future. But however, our voting in the future will consider these public submissions, but in the meantime, to enable this bill to be open to the full, free and frank scrutiny of the community, we support this bill at its first reading.
Call John Hayes.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.